Regional Transportation Authority will call to order. And if everybody would please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Director Durante, why don't you lead us?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Director Durante. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Director Anderson.
Here.
Director Buchanan. Director Colson. Director DeWitt. Director Durante.
Here.
Director Frega. Director Fuentes.
Here.
Director Higgins. Director Hobson.
Here.
Director Lewis.
Here.
Director McAllis.
Here.
Director Melvin.
Here.
Director Pang. Director Ross. Director Triani.
Here.
Chairman Dillard.
Here.
We have a quorum of 13, with 12 being present, 1 on the phone, and 2 absent.
Thank you, and Director Anderson, thank you. I know what it's like to hit that when you hear your name, when the panic, and you got to look for that mute button. But we appreciate your quiet attendance. So thank you very much for being on the phone, Anthony. Before we begin, I want to, on behalf of all the RTA staff and all of us, congratulate Director Phil Fuentes to my right, who this evening will be receiving the Corporate Social Responsibility Award from the Mexican American Legal Defense and Education Fund. MALDEF is how those of us in the community know it's referred to. He's going to receive that award tonight at the awards gala. Nice photo, Director Fuentes. Founded in 1968, MALDEF is the nation's leading Latino legal civil rights organization, and it's often referred to as the law firm of the Latino community. It promotes social change through advocacy, community education, and litigation in the areas of education, employment, immigrant rights, and political access. And I was asked on behalf of all of you to have a little snippet in a video that will be shown tonight at the gathering honoring Phil. And it was my pleasure to walk over to MALDEF and film that. It will be put on the RTA blog, so you'll all have an ability to see what great performances either myself or Director Fuentes put on. But it's a pleasure, and I will tell you one of the things that I commended Phil on. He is a civic leader. If you look at what he has done in his professional life and what he's meant to the Latino and Hispanic communities, it's unparalleled. But from our perspective, he has driven and every day advocates for the ability for people with disabilities to have an improved access and an improved experience with mass transit. So among all the things Phil does, including bringing his private business expertise to this board, I have a special soft spot for what he's done. And literally, if you look at the numbers from when Phil began to where we are today, we are moving double the number of people that we used to with disabilities. And Phil is really on this board, my conscience on much of that. So let's give Phil a hand and congratulations, Phil. It's a great award. All right, with that, let's move on to item 3A, which is the approval of the minutes from the meeting held on May 25th, 2017. Anyone have any comments on those minutes? If not, Director Frega moves that we adopt them, seconded by, can I have a second from someone? Seconded by Director Durante. Our veterans are leading the way, U.S. veterans today. Thank you, gentlemen. With that, Audrey, why don't you take the roll so we have a bench line roll call for real?
Okay. Director Anderson?
Yes.
Director Colson? Yes. Director Durante?
Yes.
Director Frega? Aye. Director Fuentes?
Aye.
Director Higgins? Yes. Director Hobson,
Yes.
Director Lewis,
Yes.
Director McGallis,
Aye.
Director Melvin,
Yes.
Director Ross, Director Triani,
Yes.
Chairman Dillard.
Yes.
We have 13 ayes and 3 absent.
Great, thank you. Item 4 is the public comment segment of today's meeting. There are no scheduled speakers for today, so we'll move right into item 5, which is Executive Director Leanne Redden's mixed report. How's that? Looking at the crystal ball. Leanne.
Here we go. That's better. Yeah, it is actually kind of a mixed report, so I guess I'm sort of starting with, I'm back with more of the good news. No, I'm being sarcastic as I say that, for those who may be listening and not seeing my air quotes there. The state owes us, thank you, Jill, $466 million in debt service and public transportation funds. That's the highest it has ever been. The state is currently 11 months behind in debt service payments and an equal 11 months behind in the public transportation fund payment as well. The cost of the short-term borrowing for just the RTA year to date is just over $1.4 million. And by comparison, last year, and this is just an annual number so far, so that's a pretty significant cost that we continue to carry to sort of add to the debt and the backlogs that we have. We have maxed out our temporary short-term borrowing authority. I think we've said that to you for several months now. And as Bea explained earlier, these numbers are very challenging and are part of our overall regional funding picture that we and the service boards are talking about and watching very closely. There's a theme here, right? So, talking about Springfield. The Illinois General Assembly concluded its spring session May 31st. Prior to the end of that legislative session, the Senate passed a budget package with several reform measures as well as a revenue bill, but no action was taken by the House. As the end of the fiscal year approaches, the governor has called both the Senate and the House back to session this week, trying to get some resolution leading up to the end of the fiscal year on June 30. IDOT has already sent out letters notifying public agencies and vendors that it will be shutting down its capital program if no budget materializes by the end of the fiscal year. In what are we at, 9 days and counting? Do we have a big clock? So last week, Senate and House Republican leaders unveiled their own budget and reform package. I think the chairman alluded to that a little bit ago. Just to give you kind of a quick rundown of what that looks like in its current form. The budget proposal included cuts to state transit funding, including a reduction of the RTA sales tax match from 30% to 27.5%, or as we refer to it as the PTF. The budget proposal also included a 2% Department of Revenue surcharge for us on all sales tax collected on behalf of the RTA, so a surcharge on our regional sales tax. They have also proposed the complete elimination of the RTA's reduced fare and ADA reduced and free ride fare program, as well as the ADA paratransit grant programs. The reduced funding included in that budget proposal would amount to approximately $100 million in a $100 million state funding cut to our region. The RTA's $400 million short-term borrowing extension, as we've talked about before, has passed both the Senate and the House, and any minute now should arrive on the governor's desk. And as the chairman talked about before, we are pushing for signature on that bill. If the governor signs the measure, the RTA's authority to for an extended 2 years of short-term borrowing capacity from 18 to 2020 will be granted, as well as allowing us to utilize another borrowing tool, a line of credit, which we've talked about this with the board before, actually allows us, if we had capacity, because we don't at this point, but to tap potentially a slightly cheaper form of short-term borrowing. So that's the Springfield good news. Moving on to Washington, President Trump released a fact sheet outlining the principles in his $1 trillion infrastructure plan. The plan would invest $200 billion in federal funds, which is predicted to leverage $800 billion in non-federal funds to reach the proposed $1 trillion investment plan over 10 years. The proposal focuses on making targeted federal investments in high-priority projects. The administration says it is encouraging self-help by having states and counties raise their own revenues and aligning infrastructure investments with entities best suited to provide sustained and efficient investment. That's a quote. The plan is vague on specifics of how that $800 billion in non-federal funds should be raised and what infrastructure improvements the $1 trillion package would go towards. On May 31st, the US DOT announced its separate to this, they announced it awarded $197 million in federal grants to 17 transportation departments and authorities. The grants will go towards projects like positive train control technology to increase safety and decrease risks of derailment. IDOT received $18.87 million in an award, and Metro received $20.20 million in a related award for those efforts. So onto the strategic plan. I just want to give you a quick update. We've told you we will keep you apprised of the progress of developing the strategic plan for the 2018-2023 period. Following the RTA board workshop that we held with you in March, staff conducted a similar workshop for regional agency and county staff on May 23rd. We had 31 representatives from 19 organizations attend and partake in that. RTA staff presented their headlines, findings, and polled the group for feedback and facilitated small table discussions. Service board staff were also instrumental in that workshop as they helped actually tailor the material and facilitated the actual discussions with the other stakeholders that participated. Stakeholders voiced support for investing more in transit, but urged agencies to make a clearer and more compelling case for improvements that riders would see and improved experiences that would result from those investments. They also talked about the need to improve bus service reliability, engage in the private sector in funding transit through value capture and other ways to monetize the value of our transit assets. Staff also facilitated a much shorter version of that same workshop with the CMAP Policy Committee earlier in June. Feedback from that group centered around funding and the pursuit of regional land use and parking pricing policies that could also better support transit. Those meetings marked the end of our research phase in our initial stakeholder outreach. At last month's meeting, you received a copy of our headlines reports that we are using across the region. If you, in any of your circles that you mix with, if you're interested in receiving more of those, we would be happy to provide those to you as well. It's also available on our website. Over the remaining weeks of summer, the RTA and the service boards will use this synthesized input from stakeholders to develop policy statements, a refreshed vision, and new goals for the plan. We will be continuing to talk to stakeholders as we go, and we will be back to get your feedback from those elements later in the summer, possibly at the August board meeting. And we are still on track to complete that plan by the end of this year and bringing a final report for your consideration, or a final plan for your consideration first thing next year. So moving on to our proposed projects for the federal 5310 funding program that are now posted for public comment. We updated you on that last month and put those, released those projects for public comment. The projects were reviewed for program eligibility by the RTA in conjunction with a project selection team comprised of IDOT, CMAP, and RTA. The remaining $3.5 million will go to IDOT to administer grants for vehicles. No RTA funds are required to support these projects, and these projects continue to meet the goals of the federal 5310 program, which is to improve mobility for seniors and individuals with disabilities by removing barriers to transportation services and expanding the transportation mobility options available. Just a quick preview on something else. The RTA again conducted a regional customer satisfaction survey with the cooperation of CTA, Metra, and PACE from November 2016 through February 2017, and I wanted to give you a quick early look at some of those results. This latest survey follows up on earlier work that we had done in the 2013-14 timeframe and earlier in 2011. Through a mix of onboard and email survey efforts, residents completed more than 21,000 surveys. This chart shows recent results in green compared to those of the 2 earlier surveys. We are looking at 3 areas of satisfaction: loyalty, which is essentially the likelihood they would recommend the service to a friend, the value of service for the fare paid, and the overall satisfaction. As you can see, satisfaction ratings for 16 exceeded both years' prior results. And as I said, these are regional rolled up results. Questions also centered on individual service board performance, as well as, and these responses were overall were positive as well. In the next few weeks, the individual agencies, CTA, Metro, and PACE, will release more details on their specific results. I'm not going to share those with you. I don't want to steal their thunder, but as I kind of alluded to, there's some good information in that, which is a good foundation for sort of the broader, challenging conversations we have, that actually we're doing a good job with what we have. Once that final report and everything is out, is completed, we will share that with you. So we look to provide you that more detailed report actually next week.
And can I stop you there just for 1 second? This is a very important slide. Director Hobson and others who constantly question, and rightfully so, as do I, how we're doing. This is a chart in difficult financial times that shows in the eyes of our riders that we are making strides under very difficult circumstances. The credit goes to the staff. It goes to the employees of the service boards. Yesterday, I gave a presentation to senior citizens in Kane County, and they can be a tough audience. And it was heartening to go out there and have some very difficult audience members say, you folks really do a great job. And there was a businessman there who said one of the things that he likes about our system, especially he compared it to New York and other systems, is the cleanliness, the lack of graffiti. And I told him, the cleanliness of our cars and of our system is much. I've ridden the system all my life, CTA, Metro. It's much better than it's been before. But it was very heartening to get really decent comments from some seniors, including some who are still in the workforce, about the satisfaction. I mean, there were no grumblers yesterday at all, which is not always the case. But it was just, you guys do a really good job for how little money you have, and especially when I tell them, that we do this on 40% of what New York City spends per capita on mass transportation. So this one's a good one. So when I say the news is mixed, this is actually good news, and a credit to the people that work for the 3 service boards. But don't relax, because Director Hobbs and I and everybody else will continue to make sure that we improve as much as we can under the circumstances we have. But that's a good slide.
So speaking of good news, I'm happy to announce that Chairman Dillard has been chosen to receive the American Public Transportation Association 2017 Local Distinguished Service Award for his work as a public transportation decision maker. This award honors him for his contribution to our industry on the local level through policy, legislative initiative, and leadership. These photos are only a few of the events and media interviews that the chairman has undertaken on behalf of our agency. He really works tirelessly on behalf of the region, as well as in DC and in Springfield. This award is well deserved. We will be sharing this great news via our blog, social media, and a press release soon. The awards ceremony will be held Tuesday, October 10th at the APTA annual meeting in Atlanta, Georgia. And please join me in congratulating Chairman Dillard in receiving this award.
Thank you. I don't want to sound like the Academy Awards, but this is not my award. This is everybody, all my fellow board members that make me look good every day, but the staff. I mean, I couldn't do this without the staff and the cooperation of Dorval Carter and you know and Don Orsino, T.J. Ross, you know, and others. This is really an award for the region, and at least you know, all I offer is just my time to go to a lot of these events, and I've probably gotten more active with APTA, really because Leanne has told me the value of APTA, and so you know, I try to help out you know, the National Association, because we're all in this together, especially the big legacy systems of Philadelphia, Washington, New York. We're all, and Los Angeles, we're all out there scrambling. One very interesting thing that I think is good for us is the gentleman Phil Washington in Los Angeles, as well as this now retiring New York Metro chief, are all Illinoisans. They're all from Chicago. They all have ties to the CTA, and it's very, very helpful to us that the heads of the systems, LA and New York, are actually our alumni of the CTA, and they grew up here or went to the University of Illinois. And it allows us to really ask some questions because they know Chicago, and they know the issues that face us. So, but this is everybody's award, and you know, APTA, under very stressful times, does a nice job of trying to represent the transit agencies, and it's a varied bunch. Peoria is very different than, you know, and Mesa, Arizona, very different than Phoenix or Chicago, but they do a nice job. So thank you, and you know, it's nice. I only wish this came with money for the system. As Phil probably wishes the Waldorf Award came for money for the RTA. But thank you, Leanne.
So one just final thing before I wrap up. On Thursday, June 15th, as we mentioned in the previous meeting, the RTA, along with CTA, Metro, and PACE, celebrated the 12th Annual National Dump the Pump Day. A couple of pictures here on the left from that event. This event is nationally supported by APTA as well, encouraging everyone to give up their cars for a day and explore the alternative forms of transportation. Cubic Transportation System, the developer of our Ventra program here, sponsored the event by providing free cups of coffee to transit riders during rush hour at Pace's Northwest Transportation Center, CTA's Roosevelt Station, and the metro stations right on Madison between Ogilvie and Union Stations. Thanks to everyone for their hard work and their participation in that. It was actually kind of a fun morning. I made a few stops at a couple of those locations and drank probably too much coffee. I'm also was very pleased to celebrate the 125th anniversary of the L with several familiar faces. You can see Dorval Carter and Mayor Emanuel. We did that a few weeks ago. I think it's once again another way to bring into focus the importance of our transportation system, that it is one of the country's oldest, and our need to maintain it for future generations, and as previous generations did for us. Finally, I want to thank Director Lewis for letting us know about the Olympia Fields Country Club and the importance that public transportation has to its members. We recently blogged about how much a great local example of the tie between economic development and public transportation is. The director of membership even created a video that shows him taking the train from his downtown condo to the club via Metro. I don't know, Director, if you had anything else to add, but that concludes my comments. Thanks.
I could add a couple things. I know in all this bad news that we've gotten about funding and so forth, many of you may or may not be familiar with the KPMG LPG event that's held as one of the 5 majors that the Women's Professional Tour hosts every year. And so fortunately, actually, it's going to be in Chicago for 2 consecutive years, because this year it's at Olympia Fields, next year it's at Kemper. But I think that thanks to Susan and Tim, we've actually got some really good publicity. And the important thing for the RTA and for public transportation is that it really kind of combines a theme of getting around from a commercial perspective Chicagoland by using public transportation. Now, we talked about ridership being down, but that blog isn't just about a golf event. It's really about the real importance and the use of public transportation to move people
to and from our broader Chicagoland community without necessarily having to rely upon cars or other forms of transportation. We can use public transportation very effectively to go hither and yon. So it's been great. It's been wonderful for the event, but even more important, I think it's been wonderful to really emphasize the importance of public transportation, having an effective public transportation system in our community. Metro's been very, very good about working with the PGA. There's going to be special trains. They're going to have cladding. There's going to be national publicity because NBC is going to pick this up. So I think we're going to get a lot of halo impact. Maybe it'll help impact some of those ridership numbers, that we talked about before. But I have to thank Leanne and Susan and Tim for all their great work in terms of supporting this. And I also want to let the directors know I gave free passes to Leanne. So if anybody wants to attend the event, just go to Leanne. She's got some free passes that you can avail yourselves of. So you can come down and watch the event, which starts actually a week from today at Olympia Fields Country Club.
Pretty neat. Thank you, Director Lewis. Dwight, Director McGallis.
I have a question for Leanne. Leanne, in your presentation, you talked about the potential impact of the budget adjustments that were being made, downgrading, for example, the 30% sales tax to 27.5 and the 2% fee on collecting. And I believe you said it was the impact overall was $100 million. Is that
The estimate that we have right now, that proposal would result in about a $100 million cut to transit on an annual basis, to our region on an annual basis.
And that's the document. Was that the document included in the document that was passed by the Senate? Or is that, what is that?
No, this has.
Or are these just proposals
This
that
is
are floating?
this is just a proposal, yes.
Oh,
This is the
okay.
current proposal that
Yeah.
they're discussing in this overtime session right now.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Yes, Director Hobson.
One, I'd like to echo your comments that one slide was very encouraging, and we're here for the riders. They are our customers, our constituents, and it's great to see improved perception on their part. That's wonderful news. And as you said, the credit goes to all the service boards. That's wonderful. Another question that I had for Leanne was on her slide regarding the $400 million borrowing capacity. Are we all tapped out? It was my impression that we had about $50 million remaining that we could tap.
You want me to take that? Or?
Yeah, either way.
So we are 1 month buffer. Remember, we pay out about $30 million to the service boards. We also have debt service payments along the way. So that's about right. We are one payment out. The good news is that we did receive a payment about 10 days ago from the state. So we had made the June payment by June 10th to the service boards, and I think we received it like June 11th or something, right around then. So that covered June. So now we have, again, one more payment from the reserve, from the short-term borrowing, to cover July. Again, if we expect and we hope to get a July payment from PTF, we're okay. So we're one payment out. One payment buffer is the way to look at it.
So that number probably should have been around 370 then, as opposed to 400 in terms of the capacity?
No. What that shows you, what you're asking is what's still available from
Right,
it.
what's still available,
What
right.
that slide shows is that the $400 million is
That's how
all
much they owe us.
existing.
No, those are the top
No,
two
no,
lines,
no,
is
no,
how
no.
much they
The
owe
bottom
us,
one
the
he's
bottom
talking
line.
about. So what that
Oh.
shows you is, of course, what he owes, what they owe us, but then it also shows short-term borrowing capacity is $400 million, and we've got that all out. But when we take it out, it sits in our funds, and then we can tap into it.
So it's not essentially all utilized. We've hit the market for all of it, but
We have about 40 million, yes.
We have about 40 million.
Right,
That's the
right.
number I was looking for.
Unused, but out already from the bank.
Bank. That's the number I was looking for. So
Correct.
for about 40 million. Okay, thank you.
Leanne, you're complete, correct?
Yes.
Okay, good. Thank you. Then we'll move on to item 6, which is the approval of the consent items as they appear on the board agenda. And they include 6A, which is the ordinance approving the combining financial report and certifying compliance with the RTA Act recovery ratio requirement for 2016. 6B is the ordinance approving and releasing the RTA 2016 Comprehensive Annual Financial Report. 6C is the ordinance authorizing the quarterly capital amendment. 6D is the ordinance authorizing long-term borrowing of that's the 2006A refunding. 6E is the ordinance adopting the 457 bylaw that went through Director Trione's committee. Are there any comments that we didn't hear at the committee meetings where these were all discussed? If not, can I have a motion on these? Director McGallis moves that we adopt these, seconded by Director Trione. Is there leave for the attendance roll call? Seeing no objection, leave is granted.
13 ayes and 3 absent.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Item 7 is the approval of contract and expenditure items as they appear on the board agenda. And today is 7A. First, an ordinance approving an emergency information technology staff augmentation contract. I don't know, Nadine or Leanne, you want to say anything on that one, or B?
So what you have before you is a request to authorize an emergency contract for IT services not to exceed $200,000 for a 12-month period due to significant staff shortages. We have 4 vacancies. The good news is a week ago we hired a new director of IT, George Coleman, who's here somewhere. George, wave.
Hi, George.
Sorry. The reality is that these are hard-to-fill positions. It's a very mobile IT environment. Job offers come, and people take those job offers. So this is to get us through this period. We hope to not use it. We hope to not use a lot of it, but we're going to need, we've got another resignation. That person will be leaving at the beginning of August or end of July. So we need help desk. We're maintaining our infrastructure, our systems, our applications, and we need this additional help to keep up with things. But remember, we're also saving on those salaries during that period of time. So that's what's before you here.
Thank you. For those of us who work for some larger institutions, or even if you're, a sole business person, it's a tough environment out there in IT, and I face this at a gigantic law firm all the time, and we do this, and it's we need to educate more students at DePaul and Loyola and others who can go out there and tell my children, go be an IT person, because it's an endless future of employment opportunities. Any questions on that? And then on 7B, I have amended, and I think it's my expenditures under the new law. Our board expenditures come before the full board. I have knocked off one night, even though I was there for 2 days. I will eat one of the nights of my hotels, trying to hold expenses down. And I choose to go to and from the airport with a local provider who is in my area, primarily because of loyalty to them and they're local. But I use and have amended it, and I use the Uber rate, so the lower rate, even though the provider I choose may be a little more expensive. On the actual forms that Audrey does that go through here, it's the lower Uber rate, the one that's up at the time I leave for the airport. So you may see it's higher, but we just use the Uber rate, which is, I think, probably the most competitive. It's generally cheaper than taxi cabs. In fact, it is cheaper than taxi cabs. So the travel expenditures that are in there for me just has one night of lodging, even though I was in Los Angeles meeting with my counterparts for 2 days, just one night of lodging, and then we use the Uber rate to and from the airport. So with that, can I have a motion to accept the items in 7? Director Ross moves that we adopt what's in 7. Is there a second? Director Melvin, thank you. There's a leave for the attendance roll call on this?
13 ayes and 3 absent.
Super. Thank you very much. Item 8 is new business, and anybody have new business before?
Yeah, I don't want to claim any credit, Mr. Chairman, but you two recipients, I want it duly noted that they sit between Director McGallis and myself.
I do believe in the scientific principle of osmosis, Director Durante. So, and it includes everybody in here. So, thank you. That's an excellent comment. Yes, Director Lewis.
This is exactly new business, but I wonder if there's any update on the, I know we're going to have a leadership change at Metro, and if there's anything that we might be updated or any plans in the works. I didn't know.
What's your latest?
Too many buttons. No, we don't have anything to specifically update. We don't have any additional information at this point.
Director Lewis, I talked to both Don Orsino and I talked to Director Oberman as he left, Chairman Oberman left the Metro service, I guess, this week. But, they have a national search going on, and they have a committee, and, they're interviewing. Director Oberman told me, as did Don Orsino, he thought they had great candidates, some internal, some external, some from the established railroads, and it's Don Orsino's a massively big hole to fill. Nobody's irreplaceable, but Don's about as close as you get, just in terms of knowledge of the system and of railroads. But hopefully they will choose wisely, and we'll have another great partner.
I asked because in conjunction with the state's situation, I just wondered if that might impact the attractiveness of the situation. So just something to keep us abreast of. That's all, and keep us informed.
Great, thank you. There are, and there when I said there were no public speakers today, if no one objects, there are a couple of people who want to address us, primarily from the disabled community, Director Fuentes. And if no one objects, knowing that we have about a 3-minute by our rule time limitation, do we not, Leanne, on speaking? If you don't mind, can we hear from the members of the public that have taken their time and come to see us this morning? So if you want, ladies and gentlemen, come on up. We do try to limit it to about 3 minutes worth of comments. We very much appreciate you joining us this morning, and we're always happy to hear from the public.
Normally we would have our clock going, so I'll just kind of keep an eye on things.
Great, thank you. Why don't you introduce yourself, tell us your name, and tell us where you reside as well. Thank you, and good morning.
I'm Dr. Ayoma Ad. I'm the president and CEO of Improve, IMPRUVE. I live in Chicago in the 9th Congressional District, 49th Ward. I have a good relationship with all of my elected officials in my district, and we have asked Congresswoman Schakowsky and others to take our complaint to the Federal Transit Administration, and we wanted help from the RTA. I have been to the PACE board meetings as well as the recent PACE ADA Advisory Committee meeting. I find that a very sterile committee. I'm also part of the Paratransit Coalition, which consists of Access Living, Adapt, Improve, the Rider-Driver Alliance, and some members of a blind residential association known as Freedman Place. We need to know, we need your help. We are protesting also with the governor's office. We will have an upcoming meeting with the governor's office of constituent affairs, as well as the office of the executive inspector general, who is responsible for certain things. We have not heard any more from the FTA, but Congresswoman Jan Schakowsky is asking them to give us a reply. We have received over 300 complaints from paratransit riders. Within the Rider-Driver Alliance, we have not only PACE drivers and riders, but CTA drivers and riders, mostly disabled, some non-disabled. We are concerned if the free ride pass, as well as the ADA paratransit service, and the reduced fare pass is reduced. We would literally be able to get thousands of people out once this announcement is made. So we need to know, what do you need from us as well?
Thank you, and we will stay in touch. In fact, Jeremy, make sure you have her contact information. I think if you were here for the lion's share of the meeting, number one, we started to talk about, Director Fuentes has a special place in his heart for people with disabilities who access our system. And I think I said I stay up at night worried about cuts and made a comment that, I don't know how they can cut legally, let alone morally, the ADA paratransit. And when I was in Washington recently, not with it was with the U.S. Department of Transportation, I was admonished by the Assistant Secretary that ADA paratransit, while our state may want to cut it in Springfield, we still have to provide it. And we have, his quote was, it's not a transportation issue, it's a civil rights issue. And there are federal court orders and federal decrees that say we have to provide it, and we do so gladly. We don't do this begrudgingly. We do it because it's the right thing to do. So we hear you loud and clear. Jeremy LaMarche, this good-looking young man right here, is our governmental affairs liaison. He works with the elected officials, and we probably won't be shy about turning you loose, so to speak, if we really think that these cuts are going to be massive and brutal. So you got a pretty. We get it. Let's put it that way. So thank you so much.
There's also someone here who wants to talk about assistance in getting a rider and driver-owned paratransit in Chicago.
Okay. Can we, we'll limit them really quickly, but Leanne and the staff, when he's finished, why don't you tell him which appropriate staffer of ours he should see and talk to?
Okay. My name is William Crosby. I'm a member of Improve. Last year I was a delegate to the Democratic Convention where I received 58,000 votes as a disabled delegate. I come before you all because I believe in home rule, and I want to talk about the Chicago paratransit program and it's not being under a home rule situation. Some years ago, RTA made a decision to remove paratransit from the CTA. As a resident of Chicago, I'm a little insulted to have to go to suburban mayors to discuss my paratransit needs. And so I have to leave out of my city, even though we're a home rule city, to have a discussion on paratransit. So I want you all to tell me what you're going to do around the question of home rule and paratransit for the citizens of Chicago. My other question is about economic development. I hear people talking about cuts to the disabled. And my question is, and one of our pet peeves that Improve is that we think that we can run paratransit as a business for disabled people and create a whole new model in the 21st century as it relates to disabled people being able to administer programs that they fought for and created. As you may or may not know, paratransit, I was a student at Spalding. I don't know if you all are aware of Spalding. Spalding is a disabled school here in the city of Chicago for disabled children. When in my day, I'm a little older than most of you, but in my day, it was required if you were disabled to go to a disabled school. So I was one of those students who fought against those requirements, forcing us as disabled people to only be in one place where only disabled people could be. And so we believe there should be disabled people in the 21st century should come out of being fourth-class citizens. You all give out contractual dollars and all these programs that we can't identify. No disabled contracts are going to any disabled people for any sources. I've asked PACE on numerous occasions to tell me what disabled. I know we do stuff with minority business development. We help women, but nobody's helping the disabled. Nobody's telling helping disabled how to become economically independent. One of the problems with most disabled people, they will live in poverty most of their lives because they're not given the opportunity. Matter of fact, they just denied generally, but when they looked at, they're denied because they just figured they can't handle it. And so I would like you all to tell me if you all are willing to develop a program that allows disabled people to receive contracts for government dollars that are supposed to be for disabled people's programs. We don't want to get into building highways or building roads or building buses. All we want to do is deal with the stuff that's around the paratransit. And so we feel that we can administer the paratransit through intranet. So disabled people don't even have to come out their house to work. They can do it through the internet. And so I would just look forward to us in the future being able to have a dialogue and a discussion around these issues, because I think it's very important issues in the 21st century. As I say, most people are in poverty, and you all hear the cuts that are coming for the disabled.
Thank you, Mr. Crosby.
You're welcome.
Thank you. And we will, Leanne, Nadine, and staff, let's get someone to work with him. Let's also look at and tell him what programs we have and what statistics we have with respect to employing companies and folks that have, do we do things with and hire, hope we do, folks with disabilities. But figure out what staff member, if you would, to put together with that gentleman. And I will say that the CTA at the time the decision was made to use PACE signed off on it. Let's put it that way. So, there were representatives of the city of Chicago that thought that move was prudent. But we hear your comments, and let's get them together with our appropriate staffer. But again, thank you for being here. Very, very, very much appreciated. All right. Last but not least, the next scheduled board meeting, as a reminder, is July 20th, starting with committees at 8:30, followed by the board meeting. We have no executive session today, and if there's no further business to come before the full meeting of the Regional Transportation Authority, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn in a second. Who wants to go home? Or back to work. Director Ross moves that we adjourn, seconded by Director McGallis. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Thank you, everybody. See you July 20th, if not before, and keep your fingers crossed on Springfield.